Now, you have said that you don't like to dissect your movies for people. You would rather have them dissect it for themselves. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. I mean, I'm done with it, I do it, and then it's for people to interact with if they choose to. And if I were to sort of dictate what people thought, I think that you wouldn't be able to have your own experience of it. And so it's the way I prefer to do it. Also I think that the thing, works or doesn't work based on your interaction with it. I'm not here traveling around with the movie, when it's playing to explain it to people. So it's irrelevant what I think.
That being said, this is the
Okay,
first
so here's what it's about. See, there's this guy, and it's all a dream.
No, but this is the first film that you directed, and you are one of the rare screenwriters who is really an auteur screenwriter, like Preston Sturges or Billy Wilder, and it's rare in this business because a lot of writers aren't respected at the level of director. Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about, for instance, the auteur theory?
Well, I'm not for it. Although auteur does mean author, so It's odd that it's applied to directors. I just want to say that. No, I mean, I think it's a collaborative medium completely, and it's ridiculous for someone to take sole credit for the way something is. Anybody. Director, writer, either. So.
And as you say you don't like to dissect things, I do see some influences in this movie that I see. I don't know if you did this on purpose, but I see some Bergman, I see some Buñuel, I see, literary influences, everything from The Doppelganger, like Dostoevsky's The Double, things like that. I mean, were there anything seeping in there? And I've even read, long essays on Jungian analysis, dream analysis applied to this film as well.
I have to.
And was any of this in your mind, or you're not going to tell me?
I'm not consciously ever. I mean, I've read what I've read, and I've thought about what I've thought about, but I'm not consciously trying to, apply it to the thing I'm doing. I'm thinking about the thing that I'm thinking about, the issues that I'm thinking about, and these ideas come to me, and they either feel right or they feel wrong. It's not an intellectual exercise, really, for me. So no. I mean, my brain seems to work in certain ways, and there are certain things that I seem to, come back to, and the double thing is something that seems to, appeal to me on some level. So the answer is not intentionally.
Okay.
I've got a question. You've worked with some of the most creative and talented directors. You've worked with some of the most creative and talented directors in some of your other films. What are some of the things that you've learned from Spike Jonze and Michel Gondry that you thought about either reacting against or borrowing from as you directed for the first time?
Again, it's hard to sort of say. I learned a lot. Of course, obviously, I'd never really hung around a movie set before, even. So I mean, I wouldn't have had the confidence to approach any of this if I hadn't had the experience of working on those other movies. But I think the thing that I realized when I started working with the crew and with the actors in this movie is that I'm not Spike, and I'm not Michelle, and I'm not Coppola, and I'm not any of these people, and that I have to do this in my way, with my personality. I think that's what you have to do. What is it that I can, how can I talk to this person, So I think that's what I did. So I'm not sure how to answer it other than that. It wasn't, again, it wasn't a conscious kind of, I'm going to borrow this, or I want it to look like this, or, there are things that appeal to me design-wise, and so I gravitate towards those, when I'm working with a production designer, and the same thing with the music, and the same thing with the acting, and which is not to say that Spike and Michelle haven't been great influences on me. They have. I don't know how to kind of quantify it.
And something that you came earlier with this movie, as before you started it, you presented you were going to work on a horror movie. Is that correct? And
Yeah.
this really kind of there is something a lot more horrifying in this movie, really, because death and disease and those are terrifying things for us.
Yeah.
And is that something that you were thinking about as you made this? Is a sort of version of something that's
As I was writing it, I mean, when originally Spike Jonze was going to direct this, and when we pitched the idea to Sony, it was because they were interested in us doing a horror movie together, and we wanted to think about things that were really scary to us, as opposed to kind of conventional horror movie genre stuff, which wasn't interesting to us to do. It's at that point. So, but when you have to throw away those, I watched a horror movie on television last night, and it's just like there's stuff, there's like ideas that are always in there. There's always that like shot where there's a little bit of too much room on the left side of the frame, and that someone's going to appear there, and it works. I mean, it's really effective, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to find something that was really scary. I think the thing I realized afterwards is that I think things that are really scary aren't popular. I mean, I think horror movies are popular because they're not really scary, because they're fun. I mean, they're scary. They get your blood pressure up and all, but it's more like a ride, that kind of. And I don't think there's a lot of safety or I intended for there not to be a lot of safety in this movie, that there's not a sort of a landing place or a place to get your bearings or anything.
Do you ever think that people that react so strongly against the film are actually kind of getting it? That's something that I think about when they are that upset by it, that they're actually being so affected by it that it is scaring them, and they're turning away from it.
I don't want to, because I feel like if I say something like that, I've certainly thought that, but I feel like if I'm saying that, then it's kind of like a little bit sour grapey, and I don't really have the right to do that, because I don't know what they're thinking. But I do think if it's the case that it's too effective and someone wants to write it off, then I'm glad, because I don't want to, if it's upsetting somebody to the point where it's really that they're doing that, then I think that they should hate the movie, and they should not watch it. Because, other people have felt kind of uplifted by it in some ways, or because they feel like a connection to the characters, and which is sort of what I was thinking, that it's sort of this human experience, and that everyone can kind of relate to, I think, the issues that I'm exploring. I mean, in one way or another, maybe not the way I've done it, but the ideas of loneliness and isolation and rejection and mortality and illness and all that stuff that we all contend with. It seemed like that would be a real crowd pleaser, and but I was wrong, and I've learned a lot.